How's it going, super friends? I'm Brad, the DC Universe Geek. In case you didn't know, welcome back to my channel. If you're a long-time viewer or if you're a new subscriber, welcome back. Today, for one, I want to talk about some of the comic books that I'm reading, but this won't be a typical episode of Comic Talk where I take one or two comics and kind of make a big fuss of them and there's motion graphics and the whole bit. It's going to be much more simplified because I'm going to touch very briefly on definitely more than 2 or 3 titles that I've been reading. I'm also going to very briefly touch on Mad Magazine, which is not DC Comics, but they definitely have a lot more of the DC comic characters in there as of late because Warner Brothers owns Mad Magazine. And I want to just show you what some of the stuff that they've been producing as of late. I think it's very cool because it's in color. Mad Magazine in color. And then finally, I wanted to give you a little heads up that on this channel, which is a DC Comics based channel, I will actually be reviewing the Skull Trooper and the Cuddle Team Leader. Why am I reviewing these figures? It's in the interest of all of us multiverse fans. Those who have been collecting the action figures marketed towards the adults, the multiverse, the DC Universe Classics, the DC superheroes, all those figures, it's been no secret that there's a massive shakeup, and that's that Mattel no longer has the license to do those figures, and now it's been given to McFarlane. Right, old news, you guys all know that. However, there's a lot of trepidation in the community where people are like, yeah, but the figures, they might just be posable statues because McFarlane has a history of making figures that aren't really that well articulated, so why should we get excited about this? And I mentioned previously, well, he has done some amazing work with his Fortnite action figures. They are of a really good quality. I didn't own any at the time, but now I do, so I'm gonna do a much more simpler than usual unboxing of these figures soon to come on my channel, just to put everyone's mind at ease that these figures that he'll be doing for DC, I'm sure, will be at least as good as this. Todd McFarlane is no slouch. He definitely has his ear to the ground. He's been listening. He knows what the collectors want. Heck, the reason why these figures have so much articulation is because he had his ear to the ground. I know that over the years, Shartimus has kind of bugged him to get the articulation points up on his figures. He's definitely taken the action figure collecting community's suggestions and desires to heart because these exist. And heck, I've even seen the Stranger Things figures, and they're definitely not as articulated as these, but they also seem like they're definitely a lot more articulated than some of the stuff he's done in the past. So yeah, I'll unbox these on the channel just so that we can all get a very close look at the quality, the sculpting, the paint apps, the basic idea of what he's capable of and what we should, in theory, be able to expect coming in the future for 2020 for his DC license. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get on to what I really wanted to talk about today in this video, and that's the comic books that I've been reading. For one, I read this a couple weeks ago. It's Wolfman and Castellini's Man and Superman. It's a 100-page giant, and it is spectacular. The artwork in this is fabulous, and so is the story. They are on equal par with each other. It basically outlines Superman coming to Metropolis from the farm, from Smallville. His parents are still alive. It's before he's even Superman, and it's kind of what he goes through to get his job at the Daily Planet. He's unsure of himself. Should he be Superman? At one point, he even sends the super suit that he brought with him back to his folks on the farm in Kansas. One, if it's continuity, which I believe it is, it becomes essential reading for Superman fans. And two, it's just so well written and illustrated that if you're a Superman fan and you're not reading this, I really feel like you're missing out on a splendid title. Next, I've been reading the newly rebooted Shazam series. I hope that it sticks around for a while because it's really good. I'm not gonna lie, it's kinda slow on the Shazam family in their suit doing super things, but the story itself really is just taking its time to shape up, and I think that they're going somewhere really fun with this. It emphasizes the family in the Shazam family, that although Billy Batson is technically the leader and he can decide whom he gives the magic word to, the power to use it, he has to feel like their family. It really shows that each person has a particular place and a role. If I did have just one complaint about how the whole Shazam family has been handled since post-Flashpoint, it's that everyone else who gets the Shazam power that he shares his power with, they all become adults too once they say the magic word. For some reason, just call me old school, I kind of like the idea of Billy Batson becoming the grown-up and all the rest saying the magic word and staying the same age, just becoming super versions of themselves. Like Freddie Freeman no longer needing his crutch. The really cool thing about this series is I feel like they're going to pay attention to each and every other super in the Shazam family, and not just pay attention to Billy and Mary and Freddy. I really hope that they keep up with this because it's interesting. And Shazam, to me, when I see the name Shazam, it kind of dawned on me. It was like, okay, Shazam is the name of the wizard. It's also the magic word. But I think that Shazam stands for the whole family. Shazam is the title of the book, and the book covers the family, not just Billy Batson. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Also, as a side note, this cover for Shazam actually has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on the inside. Comic books. Clickbaiting since comic books. Although maybe it does. Maybe this is a precursor to what's going on in the background. Maybe King Kid is Mr. Mindstorm. I have no idea. They haven't showed us enough yet. Just read it. I'll read it. We'll read it together. Detective 999. Batman has been grappling with this weird biological creature that's been going around and killing all of his buddies and friends and people that he's close to. It's been a regular show. I'm not gonna lie. And I kind of started getting the idea that this might not be real on account of Batman comics didn't have something going on even remotely the same. I know that Detective and Batman comics tend to happen independently of one another. They're both still canon and work together, but when something really big happens in one title, usually you're going to see a mention of it in the other title. At least that's my experience. Well, it turns out all the guff Batman's been dealing with is actually a yearly tradition that he imposes on himself. It's this computer simulation, a program that he goes into, and it's made to challenge him to his end. It's made to push him harder than he's ever been pushed before. And he steadily ups the ante every year because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And he's so afraid that the city needs him so much, he's so afraid that one day he's just not going to be smart enough or fast enough to actually do what needs to be done to save people. And that is Batman's ultimate goal. That is what drives him. Yes, he is kind of like the bat-shaped spirit of vengeance, but really what drives him is his desire to save people, to not have anybody else have to go through the stuff that he went through as a kid. It was a good storyline. I'm glad it came to a close so we can begin something new. I like it when we begin new things. But it was done well, it was written well, and every issue, it was one of the first ones that I would reach for to grab from my weekly pull list, or monthly, because the issues came out monthly. It was one of the first ones that I would reach for. Heroes in Crisis. That's one that, where do I begin? I've been reading since the beginning. This is issue number 6 of 9, so it is coming to a close fairly soon. And it's something that people either love or hate. Now, I'm not surprised that the title Heroes in Crisis exists because comic books over the years have steadily gotten more and more adult-oriented. There's more real topics, and we've dealt with political issues, we've dealt with drug issues. So the fact that we're now dealing with the idea that these superheroes, people that go and put themselves out on the front lines, much like police and fire and ambulance workers, are also, they're going to have certain aspects of PTSD. It's going to affect them because, for the most part, they're only human. Some of them, Superman, in some ways are more human, so they're going to be affected emotionally and mentally from the things that they're seeing and going through on a daily basis as superheroes. There's like a brand new cosmic crisis like every other week in the DC universe. How is that not going to affect them? However, as kids, we didn't think about this. I don't feel like Heroes in Crisis, the idea, dealing with it is a necessity. I think that people want escapism with their comics, and this kind of makes them more real. It's a good story. I'm glad that it exists, essentially, basically, for the most part, but I don't think that it needs to exist. It's a conversation that is good we're having, but it's not needed in DC Comics continuity. Now, with all that said, it having stellar artwork and a pretty good reasoning for its existence in the first place, the writing is okay. I gotta tell ya, I'm definitely not happy with Wally West being dead. Why? Well, because Wally West is an old school gangsta character that's been around for ages that we saw grow and change and then eventually become the main continuity DC Comics Flash after Barry sacrificed himself, and then they brought back Barry and they were like, well, what do we do with Wally West now? And he was kind of, in my opinion, sort of mistreated, forgotten about, and put on the back burner, and everything was focused on Barry. And then a lot of the traits that were Wally's traits were then added into the New 52, Barry Allen. He really wasn't exactly like the old school Barry. He was definitely more quippy and more like Wally. And so where does that leave Wally? Well, dead, because they never brought back the Wally West that we all knew and loved from pre-Flashpoint, all that whole era, because they brought back a different Wally West. He was a completely different character that just had the same basic name. With Rebirth, what did they do? They brought back actual Wally West, the Wally West that we all knew and loved, the legacy character. So many fans were so happy with the return of Wally West. It was the same people who were ticked off that they didn't bring him back in the New 52. And here he was, back. Wally West, my Wally West, your Wally West. And he coexisted with the new Wally West, who was then called Wallace West. I was cool with that. More people in the Flash family I'm always okay with. They could have both coexisted, neither one had to die or disappear. So there, that's my basic first opinion on the two Wallies. I didn't see a reason for one of them to stop existing in the DC universe. Now maybe they're using this whole story as a way for him to get his family back, which is definitely a possibility. He might not be actually gone and dead for good, folks. We need to keep that in mind. However, he also might be. He might be gone and dead. And if they bring him back, there really is no guarantee that they won't bring him back some kind of a villain. We have no idea what they're planning for him. If he is dead, it ticks so many of us off because we were so happy to have him back. There was so much fanfare that he was back and then poof, gone again. And they killed him so unceremoniously. Why did you bother resurrecting him in the first place if you're just gonna kill him off again? And then finally, in kind of DC Comics related news, but not really, but still kinda, I want to talk very quickly. I wanted to show you what Mad Magazine has been doing since they relaunched. Those of us who have been reading Mad Magazine for years will know that Mad Magazine was always in black and white. It's one of those things that, although it helped keep the cost of publication down, it definitely didn't help them win any viewers because I think that in general, people like to see things in color. So yeah, they kept their old school crowd of readers, but winning new readers with a black and white book is definitely something that's very difficult. Well, enter the new Mad Magazine, which is all in glorious color. Every single page is in color. Seriously, I think that's amazing. Now, I've been super impressed with these. They're currently up to issue number 6 at the moment. The coloring in these is really good. Plus, I have the Christmas issue. It was like $15.99 Canadian for this like double thick, and I'm pretty sure it was just a colored reprint of a previous Christmas one, or maybe they took Christmas one's stories from previous issues. But honestly, if you are not reading this, it is absolutely fan-friggin-tastic. Every single one. I keep these on my coffee table in my living room so that guests that I have over can just pick these up, and they all say the exact same thing. Hey, wait a minute. Wasn't Mad Magazine in black and white? And I go, uh-huh. And they go, now it's in color. And I go, uh-huh. Here's the actual cover for Mad Magazine number 1. Lots of DC Comics. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today. Sorry it was a longer-winded video than usual. Hopefully you haven't minded seeing my face a little bit more than normal, but I wanted to talk about some of the comic books that I'm reading, kind of touch on them. I know that it's kind of jumbled, but I'm just sitting down and it's like I'm having a conversation with you, so this is the kind of dumb stuff I'd probably say to your face. Aren't you glad you don't know me? Holy crap. And really, letting you know that these were coming and then giving you the reason for why they were going to be on the channel just a little bit ahead of time seemed like the right thing to do because this is a DC Comics channel, and honestly, I won't be collecting these. After I open these figures up, I'm going to be giving them to my son Jason, my oldest boy, who is a huge Fortnite fan, for his birthday. It's his big 1-3. He's going to be a teenager. That's exciting and terrifying all at the same time. But yep, that's it. That's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and sticking it out to the end. You're a trooper. It means so much to me that you're still looking at my dumb face spit out stupid words. Anyhow, if you like this video, you know what to do. If you want to see more of my face and my hands show up in your inbox, unlike in the real world, you can actually hit the big red button and nothing bad's gonna happen. And if you do, remember to ding the bell, and I will see you next time. And until then, have a DC day, my friends. Bye.